Miles Sullivan thought he'd seen the worst of humanity during the war, but when he found that wagon at dawn with a half-dead woman inside branded across her back with the word sin, he realized evil didn't die with the Confederacy. Her first words weren't a plea for mercy. They were a command that would haunt him forever. "You paid for me. Now finish it." What he discovered beneath that brand would destroy everything he thought he knew about justice. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button and stay with me until the very end of this story. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale travels. Now let's dive in. Miles Sullivan hadn't slept through a full night in 3 years. Not since Shiloh. Not since he watched Captain Henderson's skull come apart mid-sentence, the man's brain matter hitting Miles's face while he was still saying his daughter's name. Every night Miles woke at 3 in the morning with his hand reaching for a rifle that wasn't there anymore. So when he heard the wagon wheels at dawn, he was already awake. The Arizona Territory didn't forgive mistakes. Miles pulled on his boots and grabbed his Winchester. The blood-red sunlight was just cracking over the mountains, and there, at his fence line, sat a covered wagon. No horse, no driver, just planted there like someone's sick joke. Miles had built this cabin specifically to be away from people, away from questions about the war and why his hands shook when thunder rolled. His boots crunched against hard-packed earth. 50 yards, 40. He kept the rifle up. Something was wrong. No birds, no wind. The desert was holding its breath. At the wagon, he saw the note first, pinned to canvas with a rusty nail. Expensive paper, elegant handwriting. Debt paid in full. Miles's blood went cold. He tore the canvas aside. The smell hit him, sweat, blood infection. The wagon bed was empty except for burlap sacks in the corner. The sacks were breathing. He pulled them away. The woman was maybe 30, hard to tell through the dirt and bruises. Her dress was torn to rags, rope burns around her wrists, her face pressed against the wagon bed like she was trying to disappear into the wood. "Ma'am," Miles kept his voice steady, "can you hear me?" No response. He touched her shoulder. Her skin was burning up. Fever. "I'm going to help you. I need to get you." The woman's eyes snapped open. She twisted and Miles saw her back. The brand was 4 inches tall, burned deep between her shoulder blades. Clean letters. Someone had taken their time. Sin Miles had branded cattle. He knew what it took. The heat, the pressure, the smell. Someone had held this woman down and burned that word into her while she screamed. His stomach turned. The woman's eyes focused on his face. Gray eyes, empty, like she'd cried out every tear she had, and now there was nothing but desert sand behind them. Her lips moved, her voice scraped out like broken glass. "You paid for me." Miles shook his head. "Ma'am, I don't know." "You paid for me. Stronger now, certain. Now finish it." "Finish what?" "What he bought me for." Her eyes didn't blink. "Use me, hurt me, kill me, just finish it so I can stop." Miles stepped back like she'd slapped him. "Ma'am, I didn't buy." "Liar, flat dead. He always sends them to finish it. You're just like the others. Just do it, please. I can't keep." Her voice broke, not into tears, into something worse, like splintering wood, like her chest was cracking open. Miles slammed the rifle down, held up both hands. "I swear I didn't buy you. I don't know who left you here or why, but I'm not going to hurt you. Going to get you inside, get you water, clean those wounds, that's all." The woman stared, breathing fast, shallow, trapped animal. "You're lying." "No, ma'am. Everyone lies. Not about this." She searched his face. Miles didn't move. He'd learned in the war that sometimes the only thing you could offer was your eyes. Proof you saw them, proof they were real. Finally, she nodded. Once, barely. Miles lifted her out. She weighed nothing. He could feel every rib. When he laid her on his bed, she just stared at the ceiling, counting beams. He brought water. She drank, Whiskey, she drank that too. When he started cleaning the brand, she didn't flinch, just pressed her face into the pillow. "What's your name?" "Silence." "Ma'am, Rebecca." Muffled. "Rebecca Morgan. I'm Miles Sullivan. This is my cabin. You're safe here." "Nobody's safe. You are right now. Not from him." Miles's hand paused on the bandage. "Who?" Rebecca turned her head, looked at him over her shoulder. Her gray eyes burned with something that wasn't fever. "Judge Porter, he bought me, he branded me, and he's going to kill us both when he finds out I'm still alive." Miles poured himself whiskey. Judge Randall Porter. Everyone in Arizona Territory knew that name. Federal appointment, land disputes, mine claims, Indian treaties, the kind of judge who showed up to court in a $1,000 suit. Rebecca pushed herself up, wrapped the blanket around her shoulders, sat on the bed's edge, stared at her shaking hands. "I was a school teacher in Tombstone." Miles waited. "Had a husband, Thomas, had a daughter." Rebecca's voice caught on that word. Daughter. "Sarah, she's 7, smart as a whip, reads everything she can get her hands on, loves horses, has this laugh that sounds like—" She stopped, pressed her palms against her eyes. "Tell me about Thomas," Miles said. Rebecca lowered her hands. "Thomas was a surveyor, good man, too honest. That's what killed him. He was working near the Dragoon Mountains, Apache territory, disputed claims, found something buried in a metal box." "What kind of something?" "A map, part of one, and a treaty from the war. Union document proved the Apache had legal ownership of the mining lands. Government promised it to them in 1863, signed and sealed." Miles whistled low. "That's worth killing over." Thomas didn't think so, thought it was justice, thought he could take it to the federal marshal, stop the mining companies from stealing Apache land. Rebecca's laugh was bitter. "My husband believed in the law." "What happened?" "He went to Judge Porter, thought a federal judge would uphold a federal treaty. Porter invited him to dinner, private room at the Grand Hotel. Thomas took the map and treaty with him." Miles could guess the rest. They found Thomas in an alley 3 hours later, stabbed 17 times, pockets empty, map and treaty gone. Porter attended the funeral, beautiful speech about frontier justice, shook my hand, told me if I needed anything at all, to come to him. "You believed him?" "Hell no, but I pretended I did. I knew Porter killed my husband, or had him killed. Same thing, but I couldn't prove it, not alone, not as a widow with a 7-year-old and no money." "So what did you do?" "Started looking for evidence. Thomas told me before he died, find the doll. Sarah's doll, the one he gave her for her birthday. Blue dress, blonde hair, she took it everywhere." Miles leaned forward. He hid part of the map in a child's toy. Thomas was smart. Nobody searches a little girl's doll. Rebecca's voice softened. He knew I'd figure it out. Knew Sarah would keep it safe. Her eyes went distant. Miles saw her disappear into memory. Sarah loved that doll, called her Emma, used to have tea parties with her every afternoon. She'd pour invisible tea into those tiny cups and tell Emma about her day at school, about the stories she read, about the horses she wanted to ride when she grew up. Rebecca's voice cracked. One time Thomas came home covered in dust from surveying, and Sarah made him sit down for tea with her and Emma, made him hold that tiny cup with his big surveyor's hands. He looked ridiculous, but he did it anyway. Sat there for an hour listening to our 7-year-old explain why horses were better than mules and why apple pie was superior to cherry. A tear rolled down Rebecca's cheek. Thomas winked at me over Sarah's head. That's the last good memory I have. Him sitting at that tiny tea table holding that doll, listening to our daughter talk about pie. 3 days later, he was dead. Miles was quiet. Outside, the sun climbed higher. Porters met and came for me 3 weeks after the funeral, Rebecca continued. 4 of them kicked down my door at midnight, grabbed Sarah from her bed. She was screaming for me, screaming Mama over and over. I tried to fight them. Rebecca's hands became fists in the blanket. They hit me over and over, made Sarah watch. She was holding Emma, that doll, clutching it to her chest, while she watched them beat her mother unconscious. That's the last time I saw my daughter, 7 years old, watching her mama get beaten, holding that doll. Miles's jaw ached from clenching. They dragged me to Porter's estate, threw me in his cellar. Porter came down personally to explain how things worked. Said Thomas stole property that belonged to him, said the map was his by right of discovery, said the treaty was outdated, said if I wanted Sarah alive, I'd tell him where Thomas hid the second piece. Did you? I tried, but I didn't know exactly where, just the doll. I told Porter everything. He didn't believe me, said I was lying, protecting it. Rebecca's voice dropped to nothing. So he branded me, said if I wouldn't tell the truth, he'd mark me as what I was, a liar, a sinner, a woman who'd let her husband die rather than cooperate. Miles stood, walked to the window. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. It gets worse, Rebecca said. After the brand he sold me, not officially, but he has friends. Men who pay for women like me, broken women, branded women, women nobody will miss. He sold me to a man in Tucson, told me if I escaped, if I told anyone, he'd kill Sarah, slowly, make sure I heard her screaming first. How'd you end up here? The man in Tucson got bored after a week, sold me to someone else, then someone else. I lost count after 4, each one paid less. I was dying, infections, fever, starving. Finally, someone decided I wasn't worth keeping alive, brought me out here in that wagon, left me to die. Rebecca stared at Miles with those empty gray eyes. You should have let me die. No. Why not? I'm nothing, a branded woman in the desert. Even if I survive, what do I do? Walk into Tombstone and accuse a federal judge. They'll laugh me out or shoot me. Porter wins either way. Miles walked back, sat down, looked her in the eye. You got a daughter. That makes you everything. I don't care if Porter's a judge or the president. No man brands a woman and sells her like cattle. No man takes a child from her mother. That's not law, that's evil, and I know the difference. Rebecca blinked. Something flickered across her face. Hope, maybe, or just surprise. You'd help me? Yes. Why? Miles was quiet. The sun turned the desert gold outside. During the war, I followed orders I shouldn't have. Burned villages I shouldn't have burned. Killed people who didn't deserve it. He met her eyes. There was this Apache village near the Dragoon Mountains. My captain said they were harboring Confederate scouts. Said we had orders to clear them out. I knew it was wrong. Could see it in their faces. They were just families, old men, women, children, but I followed orders anyway. Miles' voice went flat. We burned everything. The men who fought back we shot. The ones who ran we shot. There was this elder, they called him Eagle Eye. He was trying to protect the children, stood in front of them with nothing but a knife. My captain shot him in the shoulder. He went down, but kept trying to cover those kids with his body. Rebecca watched him. I didn't shoot him, Miles said. Didn't shoot the children, but I didn't stop anyone else either, just stood there and watched. When it was over, Eagle Eye was still alive. Looked me in the eye while his village burned. Didn't say anything. Didn't have to. I knew what I'd done, knew what I was. Where is he now? Still alive, still in the territory, still remembers my face. Miles poured more whiskey. After the war, I told myself I was just following orders, just doing my duty. But that's horse shit. I made choices, bad choices, been running from them ever since. He looked at Rebecca. Can't undo what I did. But maybe I can help you get your daughter back. Maybe that counts for something. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. She has the doll. Wherever Porter's keeping her, Sarah will have Emma. She never lets it go. If we can find her, if we can get to her, we get the map. We prove what Porter did. The front door exploded inward. Miles grabbed his rifle but wasn't fast enough. 3 men burst in, big, armed. The one in front had a scar across his throat and shark eyes. "Well, well," Scarface said, revolver pointed at Miles's chest. Judge was right, she survived and found herself a hero. Miles didn't move. His finger was on the trigger. 1 shot, that's all he'd get, but it might be enough. "You boys should leave," Scarface grinned. "That's cute, but we got orders. Bring back the woman, dead or alive. Judge don't care which, though personally I'm hoping for alive. Long ride out here, wouldn't mind having some fun first." Behind Miles, Rebecca made a sound, low, animal. "Run," she whispered. Miles pulled the trigger. The Winchester kicked. Scarface's head snapped back. Brain matter hit the doorframe. Miles worked the lever, fired. The second man went down, clutching his stomach. The third raised his gun. Miles swung the rifle like a club, caught him across the jaw. Bone crunched. The man dropped. Silence. Gun smoke. Blood spreading between the floorboards. 3 men dead or dying. Miles stood there, breathing hard. Rebecca stared from the bed. Her face was white. "You just killed Porter's men." "Yeah, he'll come for us now. All of us. Won't stop until we're dead." "I know. We have to run." "Yeah." Rebecca stood. The blanket fell. She was still wearing that torn dress, still had that brand, but her eyes weren't empty anymore. "Then we run toward my daughter, not away. We find Sarah. We get that doll. We destroy Porter before he destroys us. That's the only way." Miles looked at the bodies, at Rebecca standing there like a ghost who'd decided to haunt the living, at the blood on his hands. "We need help. Porter's got money, power, an army. Can't fight him alone." "Then who?" "Eagle Eye, that Apache elder I told you about. Porter's been stealing Apache land for years, using that treaty Thomas found to justify it. Eagle Eye lost his village, his family, his land. He's been waiting for a chance at revenge. He hates you. He does. And you think he'll help." Miles checked the bodies for ammunition, found 2 revolvers and a Winchester, handed Rebecca one of the revolvers. "The enemy of my enemy," he said. "Eagle Eye hates me, but he hates men like Porter more. And if we can prove that treaty's real, prove the Apache have legal rights to that land, maybe that's enough. Maybe that's worth working with the man who stood by while his village burned." Rebecca checked the revolver. Her hands were steady. "How do we find him?" "He runs with a small band up in the Dragoon Mountains, near where Thomas found that map. Won't be easy. Apache don't trust white men, especially not white men who burned their villages. But he'll listen. He'll listen. Whether he helps is another question." Rebecca nodded. "Then we go now, before Porter sends more men." They gathered supplies. Miles took his rifle, both revolvers, ammunition canteen, dried meat, and a bedroll. Rebecca took the blanket, the knife from one of the dead men, and a canteen. She moved carefully. The brand on her back was still fresh, but she didn't complain. At the door, Miles looked back at his cabin. 3 years he'd lived here. 3 years hiding from the world, from his memories, from what he'd done. "You all right?" Rebecca asked. Miles thought about Captain Henderson's skull coming apart, about Eagle Eye's village burning, about all the ghosts he'd been running from. "No," he said, "but I'm done running." They walked out into the desert. Behind them, the sun climbed higher. Blood on the cabin floor dried to rust. Buzzards were already circling. Somewhere in Tombstone, Judge Porter would receive word soon. His men failed. The woman survived, and she had help now. The war was starting. Miles Sullivan loaded his rifle and started walking toward the mountains, toward the man who hated him, toward the daughter of a woman he'd just met, toward a fight he couldn't win. But this time, for the first time in 3 years, he was walking toward something instead of away. Rebecca walked beside him, silent, determined. Every step hurt her back. Every breath reminded her of what she'd lost. But she kept walking, because somewhere ahead, in whatever hell Porter had locked her in, a 7-year-old girl was holding a doll named Emma, and that little girl was waiting for her mama to come home. The Dragoon Mountains rose from the desert, like broken teeth. Miles and Rebecca had been walking for 6 hours when the sun reached its peak, and the heat became a living thing that pressed down on them like a hand. Rebecca stumbled. Miles caught her arm. "Need to rest," he said. "No, keep going. You'll pass out. Then I pass out. We keep going." Miles looked at her. Sweat poured down her face. The bandage on her back was seeping through her dress. She'd been branded 2 days ago and sold like livestock and left to die, and now she was marching through the Arizona desert like a soldier. "5 minutes," Miles said, "in the shade." He led her to an outcropping of rock that cast a thin shadow. They sat. Miles handed her the canteen. She drank, but didn't drink much, saving it, smart. "How much further?" Rebecca asked. "Eagle Eye's band moves around, but there's a place, an old meeting ground near the springs. If he's anywhere, he'll be there. And if he's not, then we wait." Rebecca was quiet. She stared at the mountains ahead. Miles watched her profile, the set of her jaw, the way she held herself despite the pain. "You were a teacher," Miles said. "What did you teach?" "Reading, writing, history, arithmetic, everything a frontier schoolhouse needs." "You liked it, loved it." Rebecca smiled for the first time since Miles found her. It was small, sad, but real. Those kids, some of them came from nothing, families who couldn't read, parents who worked the mines or the ranches and never had schooling themselves. But those kids wanted to learn, wanted something more. Sarah, one of your students, not officially, she was too young, but she'd sit in the back of the classroom sometimes, watch the older kids, try to copy their letters. By the time she was 5, she could read better than some of my 10-year-olds. Rebecca's voice went soft. "Thomas and I, we had plans. Save money, move somewhere bigger, maybe Santa Fe or Denver. Open a real school. Give Sarah opportunities, give her a future that wasn't just dust and drought." "You'll still do that," Miles said. Rebecca looked at him. "You don't know that. I know you're still breathing, still fighting. That's enough." They sat in silence. The desert stretched out below them, empty, brutal, beautiful. "Why'd you come out here?" Rebecca asked. "After the war, why Arizona?" Miles took a long time to answer. "Needed to disappear, needed to be somewhere nobody knew my name or my face, somewhere I could forget." "Did it work?" "No." Rebecca nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. "The war ended 11 years ago," she said. "You've been out here the whole time. Most of it. Tried going back east first, made it as far as Kansas City. Lasted 3 months. Too many people, too many questions, too many church bells." "Church bells. Sound like artillery. The big guns, can't stand them." Rebecca watched him. "You have family." "Had a mother. She died while I was at war." "Father died before that. No siblings, no wife, nobody waiting for me when it ended." "That why you helped me, because you got nobody?" Miles shook his head. "Helped you because it was right. Because walking away from you would have been the same as pulling that trigger myself. I've done enough walking away." Rebecca held his gaze. Something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or just recognition. Two people who'd lost everything and were still trying to figure out how to keep breathing. "We should move," Miles said. They stood, started walking again. The mountains grew closer. The air grew thinner. By the time the sun started dropping, they'd reached the foothills. That's when the arrows hit. The first one buried itself in the ground 6 inches from Miles's boot. The second hit a rock near Rebecca's head and shattered. Miles grabbed Rebecca and pulled her behind a boulder. "Don't move," he said. "Are they Apache?" "Yeah." Miles stood slowly, raised both hands above his head, left his rifle on the ground. "I'm looking for Eagle Eye," he shouted. "I need to talk to Eagle Eye." Silence. The desert held its breath again. Then a voice came from somewhere in the rocks above them, speaking English with an accent that turned the words into music. "Eagle Eye does not talk to men who burn villages." Miles's heart hammered. I know what I did, but I got information he needs to hear. Information about Judge Porter and the stolen land. Judge Porter is a white man's problem." Judge Porter has been using fake treaties to take Apache land, selling it to mining companies, getting rich while your people starve. I got proof, real proof. A treaty from the war that shows the land belongs to the Apache. Silence again, longer this time. Then the voice said, "Where is this treaty? Hidden, in pieces, but I know where one piece is, and I know how to get it." Why should Eagle Eye believe the man who watched his village die? Miles closed his eyes, saw flames, heard screaming, saw Eagle Eye on the ground with blood pouring from his shoulder. "Because I can't undo what I did," Miles said. "Can't bring back the people I let die, but I can help you get your land back, can help you prove Porter's a thief and a murderer. That's worth something, worth listening to at least." The silence stretched. Miles waited. Rebecca pressed against the boulder behind him, breathing hard. Then Eagle Eye stepped out from behind a rock 30 feet away. He was older than Miles remembered. Gray hair, weathered face, but the eyes were the same, sharp, clear, the eyes that had looked at Miles across a burning village 11 years ago. Eagle Eye still had a scar on his left shoulder. Miles could see it through his shirt. The bullet Miles's captain had put there. "You bring a woman," Eagle Eye said, "a branded woman. Her name's Rebecca Morgan. Her husband found the treaty. Porter killed him for it, took her daughter, branded her, and sold her." Eagle Eye walked closer, looked at Rebecca. His expression didn't change. "Show me," he said. Rebecca hesitated, then she turned around and pulled down the blanket, showed him the brand. Eagle Eye stared at it for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, controlled, but Miles heard the rage underneath. "I have seen this before in the old days. When the Spanish came, they would brand the women they took, mark them as slaves, property, less than human." Eagle Eye's eyes met Miles's. "I did not think white men still did this." "Porter did it," Miles said. "Porter and men like him. They think because they wear suits and sit in courtrooms, they can do whatever they want, take whatever they want, hurt whoever they want. And you want to stop him. I want to get Rebecca's daughter back, want to expose Porter for what he is, want to make sure he can't hurt anyone else. The treaty, the real treaty, proves your people own the mining lands, proves Porter's been lying, proves everything." Eagle Eye was quiet. He looked at Rebecca again, at the brand, at her face, at the way she stood despite the pain. "This daughter," Eagle Eye said. "How old?" "7," Rebecca whispered sad. Eagle Eye nodded slowly. "I had a daughter once. She was 8 when the soldiers came, when they burned our village, when I tried to protect her and the others." He looked at Miles. "Your captain shot me. I fell. And while I lay there bleeding, the soldiers took my daughter, took all the children, said they were saving them, bringing them to mission schools, teaching them to be civilized." Rebecca made a sound, small, broken. "I never saw her again," Eagle Eye said. "Searched for 3 years. Every mission, every school, every town. She was gone, erased, given a new name, a new life, taught to forget she was Apache, taught to forget me." Miles felt something crack in his chest. "I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry." Sorry does not bring back the dead, does not return stolen children, does not rebuild burned villages. Eagle Eye's eyes were hard. "But maybe it can stop more children from being taken. Maybe it can return stolen land. Maybe that is enough." "You'll help us?" Rebecca asked. Eagle Eye looked at her. "I will help you find your daughter. I will help you destroy Judge Porter, not because I forgive this man." He pointed at Miles. "I will never forgive him, but because Porter has taken too much from too many people, because the treaty you speak of, if it is real, can save what is left of my people. That is worth more than revenge." Miles let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "Thank you," he said. "Do not thank me yet. First, we must get this treaty. You said it is hidden. Where? Porter has Rebecca's daughter locked up somewhere in or near Tombstone. The girl has a doll. Part of the map is hidden inside that doll. The map shows where the treaty and the gold are hidden. Gold. Eagle Eye's eyes narrowed. Union gold, Miles said. From the war. Hidden in the same place as the treaty. There's a man in Tombstone, Captain Holloway, former Union officer, who has the third piece of the map. If we can get all three pieces, we can find the treaty and the gold. Use them both to destroy Porter. Eagle Eye considered this. How do we get the child? That's the problem. We don't know where Porter's keeping her. Could be at his estate, could be somewhere else. We need information first. I can get information, Eagle Eye said. I have eyes in Tombstone, people who owe me debts, people Porter thinks are beneath his notice. He looked at Rebecca. But you cannot go into Tombstone. Porter will recognize you, kill you on sight. I don't care, I'm not waiting outside while you will wait, Eagle Eye said. It wasn't a request. If you go into Tombstone and die, your daughter loses her mother forever. If you wait and let us find her first, you both survive. Which do you choose? Rebecca's jaw tightened. Miles could see her fighting with herself, every instinct screaming to run toward her daughter, every rational thought saying Eagle Eye was right. How long? She asked. 2 days. Maybe 3. I will send word to my contacts in Tombstone, find out where Porter keeps the girl, find out his patterns, his weaknesses. Then we strike. 3 days is too long. He could hurt her, could move her, could kill her if we rush in blind, Eagle Eye said. Porter is not a fool. He has men, guns, money. If we attack without a plan, we die, and your daughter dies. Is that what you want? Rebecca closed her eyes. Tears leaked out. No. Then we wait. We plan. We do this right. Miles touched Rebecca's arm. He's right. I know it's hard, but we do this smart or we don't do it at all. Rebecca nodded. She looked like she might break apart, but she held. Eagle Eye whistled. 3 Apache warriors appeared from the rocks. Young men, armed with rifles and bows. They looked at Miles with flat hatred. We camp here tonight, Eagle Eye said. Tomorrow I send runners to Tombstone. We wait for their return. Then we move. That night they made camp in a canyon sheltered from the wind. No fire, too dangerous. They ate dried meat and drank water from a spring that trickled out of the rocks. Rebecca sat apart from the others, staring at nothing. Miles walked over and sat beside her. But you doing all right? No. Stupid question. Sorry. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Then she said, what if she doesn't remember me? Porter's had her for 2 months. What if he's been telling her I'm dead? What if he's been... Her voice broke. What if he's been hurting her? Then we kill him slow. Rebecca looked at Miles. You mean that every word? You're not a killer. I was a soldier. Same thing. No, it's not. Soldiers follow orders. Killers choose. Miles was quiet. Maybe I'm both. Maybe that's what I've always been, and I just didn't want to admit it. Rebecca studied his face in the darkness. You're trying to make me feel better. Is it working? No. Didn't think so. They sat in silence. Above them, stars crowded the sky. Thousands of them, more than Miles had ever seen back east. Out here in the desert, away from towns and lights, the universe showed itself in full. It made him feel small, insignificant, like all his sins and guilt and memories didn't matter at all. Tell me about her, Miles said. Tell me about Sarah. Rebecca took a shaky breath. She's stubborn, gets that from me. Once she makes up her mind about something, you can't change it. Thomas used to joke that arguing with Sarah was like arguing with a mule, except the mule would eventually give up. Miles smiled. She's also kind. Rebecca continued. Last winter there was a boy at school, Jeremy. He was poor, poorer than most. Came to school without lunch every day. Sarah started sharing hers. Just split her sandwich in half without saying anything. Did it for 3 months until I noticed. When I asked her why, she said, he was hungry, Mama. What else was I supposed to do? Rebecca's voice shook. She's 7 years old and she understands things most adults don't. understands fairness, justice, kindness, and Porter has her locked up somewhere, teaching her God knows what, hurting her God knows how. And I can't, she broke. Finally, completely, the tears came hard and fast. Miles put his arm around her shoulders and let her cry. She sobbed into his chest while the stars watched and the desert held its breath. When the tears finally stopped, Rebecca pulled back, wiped her face with the blanket. "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be. I'm supposed to be strong, supposed to keep fighting." "You are fighting. Crying doesn't make you weak, makes you human." Rebecca looked at him, really looked. "Why are you doing this? Really, not the noble answer, the real one." Miles thought about it, about Captain Henderson's skull, about Eagle Eye's village, about all the ghosts he'd been running from. "Because I'm tired," he said finally. "Tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of waking up every night at 3 a.m. with my heart trying to punch through my ribs. I've spent 11 years trying to forget what I did during the war, trying to pretend I'm not the man who stood by while innocent people died, but I am that man, and nothing I do will change that." He met her eyes. "But maybe I can be something else too. Maybe I can be the man who helped save one little girl, who helped stop one evil son of a bitch from hurting anyone else. Maybe that doesn't erase what I did. But maybe it means I'm not just a coward who burned villages. Maybe it means I'm also the man who stood up when it mattered." Rebecca held his gaze. "You're not a coward. You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Cowards don't kill 3 men to protect a stranger. Cowards don't march into Apache territory to ask for help from a man who hates them. Cowards don't fight fights they can't win." She touched his hand. "You're a lot of things, Miles Sullivan, but you're not a coward." Something passed between them, something Miles couldn't name. It wasn't love. Too soon for that. Too broken. But it was connection, understanding. 2 damaged people recognizing each other in the dark. "Get some sleep," Miles said. "Tomorrow we plan. Day after that we get your daughter back." Rebecca nodded. She lay down on the hard ground using the blanket as a pillow. Miles stayed sitting, watching the stars, thinking about 7-year-old girls and dolls named Emma and judges who branded women. Across the camp, Eagle Eye watched him. Their eyes met. Neither man looked away. After a long moment, Eagle Eye nodded. Once, barely. It wasn't forgiveness, wasn't friendship, but it was acknowledgement. A truce. Miles nodded back. The next morning, Eagle Eye sent 2 runners to Tombstone, young men who moved like shadows. They were gone before the sun cleared the mountains. The day passed slow. Rebecca paced, checked her revolver, paced some more. Miles cleaned his rifle, checked his ammunition, tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. Eagle Eye sat on a rock and stared at the desert, like he could see through it, like he could see all the way to Tombstone and Judge Porter and the little girl locked in whatever hell Porter had made for her. By evening, Rebecca was wound so tight, Miles thought she might snap. "Tell me about the treaty," she said suddenly. "The one Thomas found. What exactly does it say?" Eagle Eye looked up. "You have not read it. Thomas told me about it, but he never showed me. Said it was too dangerous, said the less I knew, the safer I'd be." Rebecca's laugh was bitter. "Look how that turned out." Eagle Eye was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "In 1863, the Union needed allies. The Confederacy was pushing west, trying to take the territories, trying to take the gold. The Apache were caught in between. Some bands fought for the Union, some for the Confederacy. Most just wanted to be left alone." He stood, walked to the edge of the canyon, stared out at the mountains. The Union made promises, said if the Apache helped them, if they scouted for them, fought for them, the Apache would keep their lands, all of it, from the Dragoon Mountains to the Chiricahua Range, sacred lands, hunting grounds, places where our people had lived for centuries. "What happened?" Miles asked. "The Union won. The promises were forgotten. New treaties were signed, treaties that gave the land to settlers, to miners, to railroad companies. The Apache were pushed onto reservations, smaller and smaller pieces of land nobody else wanted. Eagle Eye turned back to them. But the original treaty still exists, signed by Union generals, by government officials. It is legal, binding. If it could be found, if it could be proven, the Apache could reclaim the lands, stop the mining, stop the stealing, save what is left of our people. That's why Porter killed Thomas, Rebecca said, because Thomas could prove Porter's land claims were fraud, could prove Porter was selling land that didn't belong to him. Yes, and that is why Porter will never stop hunting you, because you and your daughter are the only ones who know where the treaty is hidden, the only ones who can prove his crimes. Rebecca's hands became fists. Then we destroy him first. The runners returned 2 hours after sunset. They spoke to Eagle Eye in Apache, fast, urgent. Eagle Eye's face didn't change, but Miles saw his jaw tighten. When the runners finished, Eagle Eye walked over to Miles and Rebecca. Porter has your daughter at his estate, not in the main house, in the old carriage house behind it, locked in an upstairs room, blue door, 1 guard outside, 2 more patrolling the grounds. Rebecca stood. Then we go now, tonight. No, we go tomorrow night. I have a plan. I don't want a plan. I want my daughter. And you will get her, but we do this smart. Eagle Eye's eyes were hard. My runners spoke to a woman who works in Porter's kitchen. She says the girl is alive, unhurt. Porter is keeping her comfortable, fed, cared for. He wants her cooperative, wants her to trust him. That means she is safe, for now. For now isn't good enough. It is all we have. Tomorrow night, Porter hosts a party. Big party. Territorial officials, mining company owners, all his rich friends. The house will be full. Guards will be distracted. That is when we strike. Miles nodded slowly. Makes sense. More chaos. More opportunity. I don't care about opportunity, Rebecca said. I care about Sarah. So do I, Eagle Eye said. That is why we wait. That is why we plan. Rush in tonight, we all die. Your daughter loses her mother forever. Wait 1 more day, we have a real chance. Rebecca looked at Miles. He could see her desperation, her need to run straight at Porter's estate and tear it apart with her bare hands. 1 more day, Miles said quietly. That's all. We get her tomorrow night, I promise. Rebecca closed her eyes. If he hurts her, he won't. You heard Eagle Eye. He's keeping her safe, keeping her comfortable. He needs her. Why? Why does he need her? Miles and Eagle Eye exchanged a glance. Because she knows where the doll is, Miles said. Maybe not consciously, but she's the last person who had it. Porter probably thinks if he's nice to her, gains her trust, she'll tell him where it is. Where Emma is. Rebecca's eyes flew open. She'll never tell him. Sarah would die first. Exactly. Which means Porter has to keep her alive, has to keep trying. That buys us time. Rebecca sat down hard, put her head in her hands. 1 more day. 1 more day, Miles repeated. Then we end this. That night, Miles couldn't sleep. He lay on the hard ground staring at the stars and thinking about tomorrow, about all the ways it could go wrong, about what happened if they failed. Beside him, Rebecca was awake too. He could tell by her breathing. You awake, he whispered. Yeah, scared, terrified. Me too. Rebecca turned her head to look at him. What happens if we die tomorrow? We don't. But if we do, what happens to Sarah? Miles was quiet. Eagle Eye will get her out. He gave his word. Apache don't break their word. You trust him. I don't know, but I think he sees his daughter when he looks at Sarah. I think saving her is a way of saving the daughter he lost. So yeah, I trust him with this. Rebecca nodded. Turn back to the stars. If we survive tomorrow, what then? We get the treaty, expose Porter, make sure he hangs for what he's done. And after that, you and Sarah go somewhere safe, somewhere Porter's friends can't find you. Start over. What about you? Miles thought about his cabin, about the blood on the floor, about the life he'd built in the desert to escape his ghosts. Don't know, maybe I come with you, maybe I stay, maybe I finally stop running and figure out how to live with what I've done. You should come with us, Rebecca said quietly. Sarah would like you, and I think I'd like you around too. Miles's chest tightened dead. Let's survive tomorrow first. Deal. They lay in silence. Above them the stars wheeled across the sky. Tomorrow would come whether they were ready or not. Tomorrow they'd walk into hell and try to pull out an angel, and maybe they'd make it, or maybe they'd die trying. Either way, Miles thought it was better than hiding, better than running, better than waking up at 3 a.m. reaching for ghosts. He closed his eyes and waited for dawn. Dawn came cold and sharp. Miles woke to find Eagle Eye already up, talking quietly with his warriors. Rebecca sat on a rock nearby, her revolver in her lap, staring toward Tombstone like she could see through 30 miles of desert and stone straight to her daughter. Miles walked over and sat beside her. Neither of them spoke for a while. Today, Rebecca finally said. Not a question, a statement. Today, Miles confirmed. I keep thinking about what I'm going to say to her when I see her. I've practiced it 1,000 times in my head, but none of it sounds right. None of it feels like enough. You don't need to say anything. Just hold her, that'll be enough. Rebecca nodded but didn't look convinced. Her hands were shaking. Miles put his hand over hers. We're going to get her back, he said. You can't promise that. I just did. Eagle Eye walked over. His face was grim. We leave in 1 hour. My men will go ahead. Scout the estate. Find the weak points. You two will wait until dark. Then we move. Why can't we go with them? Rebecca asked. Because you are white. You will be seen. My men can move unseen. It is what we do. I don't want to wait any more. You have waited 2 months. You can wait 6 more hours. Eagle Eye's voice wasn't unkind, but it was firm. Your daughter needs you alive, not dead because you rushed in without thinking. Rebecca looked like she wanted to argue, but Miles squeezed her hand. He's right, Miles said. We wait. We do this smart. 3 of Eagle Eye's warriors left as the sun climbed higher. They moved like smoke through the rocks there 1 second and gone the next. Miles watched them disappear and felt something cold settle in his gut. This was real now, no more planning, no more waiting. In a few hours they'd be fighting for their lives. The day crawled by like a wounded animal. Rebecca paced. Miles checked his weapons for the 100th time. Eagle Eye sat motionless on a rock, his eyes closed, his lips moving in what might have been prayer. When the sun finally started dropping toward the horizon, Eagle Eye stood. It is time. They walked toward Tombstone as the desert turned gold, then orange, then purple. Miles led the way, rifle ready. Rebecca walked beside him, her jaw set, her eyes hard. Eagle Eye and 2 of his remaining warriors followed behind, silent as ghosts. They reached the outskirts of Tombstone just after full dark. The town blazed with lamplight. Music and laughter drifted from the saloons. Miles could smell roasting meat and whiskey and perfume. Normal life. People who had no idea what was about to happen. Eagle Eye's scouts met them at an abandoned barn on the edge of town. They spoke quickly in Apache. Eagle Eye nodded, his expression darkening. Porter's estate is 2 miles south of town, Eagle Eye said. The party has started. Many people, many guards. But there is a water tunnel under the east wall, built for irrigation, big enough for a man to crawl through. It leads to the cellar. And Sarah, Rebecca's voice was tight, still in the carriage house. Blue door, 1 guard outside, 2 more patrol the grounds every 15 minutes. The shift changes at midnight. Miles checked his pocket watch. That gives us 3 hours. We go now, Eagle Eye said, before the shift change, while the guards are comfortable, complacent. They moved through the darkness toward Porter's estate. Miles's heart hammered against his ribs. His hands were steady muscle memory from the war, but inside he was screaming. This was insane. They were walking into a fortified estate full of armed men to steal a child from a federal judge. If they failed, they'd all hang. If they succeeded, they'd probably still hang. But Miles kept walking anyway. Porter's estate rose out of the darkness like a castle. 3 stories, white columns, manicured gardens, lamplight blazed from every window. Miles could see shapes moving inside, fancy dresses, expensive suits, the territorial elite celebrating while a 7-year-old girl sat locked in a carriage house behind them. Eagle Eye led them around to the east wall. His scouts had already found the water tunnel, a stone culvert that ran under the wall. It was maybe 3 feet wide, dark, wet. Miles couldn't see the other end. "I go first," Eagle Eye said. "Then you." He pointed at Miles. "Then her." He pointed at Rebecca. "My men stay here, guard the exit. If we are not back in 30 minutes, they leave." "Like hell," Rebecca said. "If we are not back in 30 minutes, we are dead. No reason for them to die, too." Eagle Eye didn't wait for an argument. He dropped to his hands and knees and crawled into the tunnel. Miles looked at Rebecca. "You ready?" "No." "Me neither." Miles dropped down and followed Eagle Eye into the darkness. The tunnel was smaller than it looked. His shoulders scraped the sides. Water soaked through his pants. He could hear Rebecca behind him breathing hard, trying not to panic. The tunnel seemed to go on forever. Miles's back screamed. His knees ached. He couldn't see anything, just kept crawling forward, following the sound of Eagle Eye's movement ahead. Then suddenly, there was light. Faint, flickering. Eagle Eye had stopped at the tunnel's end. He was looking up through a metal grate into a cellar. Miles crawled up beside him. Through the grate, he could see stone walls, wine racks, barrels, and stairs leading up. Eagle Eye worked the grate loose. It came away with barely a sound. He pulled himself up into the cellar, then reached down to help Miles. Together they pulled Rebecca up. They stood in the cellar, dripping water, breathing hard. Above them, Miles could hear music, laughter. The party was in full swing. "The carriage house is behind the main building," Eagle Eye whispered. "We go up these stairs, through the kitchen, out the back door. If anyone sees us, we kill them quietly. No gunfire, not yet." Rebecca pulled out her revolver. Her hands were steady now. Miles saw something in her eyes that hadn't been there before, something cold, determined. She'd been a school teacher 2 months ago. Now she was about to kill anyone who stood between her and her daughter. War changed people. Miles knew that better than most. They climbed the stairs. Eagle Eye opened the door at the top slowly, carefully, peeked through, nodded. The kitchen was empty. The staff was busy serving the party in the main rooms. Eagle Eye moved across the kitchen like a shadow. Miles and Rebecca followed. They reached the back door without being seen. Outside, the night air hit Miles's face like a blessing. He could see the carriage house now, 50 yards away, 2 stories. The upstairs window on the right showed lamplight behind a curtain. The blue door stood at the base of the stairs, and sitting on the steps smoking a cigarette was the guard. He was a big man, maybe 6'4", broad shoulders. A rifle leaned against the wall beside him. He looked bored, comfortable. Eagle Eye touched Miles's arm, pointed at himself, then at the guard. Miles understood. Eagle Eye would take him. Eagle Eye moved. He crossed the yard without making a sound, staying low using the shadows. The guard never looked up, never saw death coming. Eagle Eye's knife went into the man's throat before he could scream. The guard's eyes went wide. He tried to grab Eagle Eye, tried to fight, but Eagle Eye held him tight, let him bleed out quietly. It took maybe 20 seconds. Then the guard went limp. Eagle Eye lowered him to the ground, waved Miles and Rebecca forward. They ran across the yard. Miles's boots were too loud on the grass. He was sure someone would hear, sure someone would raise the alarm, but nobody did. They reached the carriage house. Eagle Eye tried the door, locked. Miles pulled out his knife and worked the lock. His hands were shaking now, not from fear, from anticipation. Sarah was right above them, right there, so close Rebecca could probably hear her breathing. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Inside was darkness, a narrow staircase leading up. Miles went first, rifle ready. Each step creaked. Each step sounded like thunder. He was sure they'd be caught. Sure, this was where it all fell apart. At the top of the stairs was another door. This one blew. Miles pressed his ear against it, heard nothing. He looked back at Rebecca. Her eyes were wild, desperate. Miles turned the handle. The door wasn't locked. He pushed it open slowly. The room inside was small, clean, a bed, a chair, a dresser. And sitting on the bed holding a doll with a blue dress and blonde hair was a little girl. She had Rebecca's gray eyes, Thomas's dark hair. She looked up when the door opened, and her face went white. "Mama," she whispered. Rebecca pushed past Miles, dropped to her knees. Sarah threw herself into her mother's arms. They held each other, both of them crying, both of them shaking. Sarah buried her face in Rebecca's neck and sobbed. Rebecca pressed her face into Sarah's hair and made sounds that weren't quite words. Miles turned away, gave them a moment. His throat was tight, his eyes burned. Eagle Eye stood at the door, watching the yard. "We need to go now." "Just a minute," Miles said. "We do not have a minute. The patrols." Footsteps on the stairs. Miles spun, brought up his rifle. Two men burst through the door. Guards. They saw Rebecca and Sarah, saw Eagle Eye, reached for their guns. Miles fired. The Winchester's report was deafening in the small room. The first guard went down. Eagle Eye's knife took the second guard in the chest before he could draw. "Go," Eagle Eye shouted. They heard that. "Go, now." Rebecca grabbed Sarah and ran for the stairs. Miles followed. Behind them he could hear shouting, running feet. The estate was waking up. They burst out of the carriage house into chaos. Men were running across the yard. Someone was ringing a bell. Lamplight blazed from every window. "The tunnel," Eagle Eye yelled. "Get to the tunnel." They ran. Sarah clung to Rebecca's neck. Miles fired at the shapes emerging from the main house. Bought them seconds. Eagle Eye covered their retreat, his rifle barking. They reached the kitchen door, crashed through. A woman screamed. A man in a white jacket tried to grab Rebecca. Miles hit him with the rifle butt. He went down. The cellar stairs. Down, down. The tunnel entrance. "Go." Miles shoved Rebecca toward the opening. She dropped into the tunnel with Sarah, started crawling. Miles turned back. Eagle Eye was at the top of the stairs. 5 men were trying to get through the door. Eagle Eye fired, reloaded, fired again. "Come on," Miles shouted. "Go, I will hold them." "Like hell." Miles grabbed Eagle Eye's arm, pulled him toward the tunnel. Eagle Eye fired once more, then let himself be dragged. They dropped into the tunnel, started crawling. Behind them, men poured into the cellar. Bullets ricocheted off stone. Someone was shouting orders. The tunnel was a nightmare. Miles couldn't see, couldn't breathe, just crawled forward as fast as he could. His knees slammed against stone. His shoulders scraped the walls. Ahead, he saw lamplight. The exit. Rebecca and Sarah were already out. Eagle Eye's men were pulling them up. Miles reached the opening. Hands grabbed him, pulled him out into the night air. He gasped, rolled onto his back. Eagle Eye came out last. His shoulder was bleeding. Someone had shot him, but he was alive. "Run," Eagle Eye said. "They will send men, many men. We need to reach the horses." They ran through the darkness. Behind them, Tombstone blazed with light. Dogs barked. Men shouted. The hunt was on. Eagle Eye's scouts had hidden horses a mile outside town. They reached them just as riders appeared behind them, maybe a dozen, maybe more. Miles threw himself onto a horse, pulled Rebecca and Sarah up behind him. Eagle Eye and his men mounted. They kicked their horses into a gallop. The riders followed. Miles could hear them. Getting closer, shots rang out. A bullet passed so close to Miles's head, he felt the wind. "Ride," Eagle Eye shouted. "Do not stop." They rode into the desert. The horses were good, fast, but Porter's men were fresh, well-fed. They were gaining. More shots. Sarah screamed. Rebecca held her tighter. "We cannot outrun them," Eagle Eye yelled. "Then we fight," Miles shouted back. "There are too many." "I don't care." Eagle Eye looked at him. Something passed between them. understanding, acceptance. There, Eagle Eye pointed at a rocky outcropping ahead. We make our stand there. They drove the horses toward the rocks, dismounted, got behind cover. Miles checked his ammunition. He had maybe 30 rounds left. Eagle Eye had less. The other warriors had bows and maybe a dozen arrows each. The riders were coming. Miles could see them now in the moonlight, at least 15, maybe 20, all armed, all angry. I am sorry, Eagle Eye said quietly. I thought we could get away. We got Sarah out, Miles said. That's what mattered. Rebecca held Sarah close. The girl's face was buried in her mother's chest. She was crying, terrified. Mama, Sarah's voice was small. Are we going to die? Rebecca's face twisted. No, baby, no, we're going to be fine. But those men are not going to hurt you. Your mama promises. Miles looked at Rebecca. They both knew it was a lie. They both knew how this ended. The riders were 100 yards or yards away now, slowing down, surrounding the rocks. They knew they had Miles and the others trapped. No reason to rush. Miles raised his rifle, sighted on the lead rider, put his finger on the trigger. This was it. This was how it ended. In the Arizona desert, surrounded, outnumbered. But at least Sarah was free. At least Rebecca got to hold her daughter one more time. At least Miles wasn't running anymore. He pulled the trigger. The rider went down. The others scattered. Return fire erupted. Bullets slammed into the rocks around them. Eagle Eye fired back. His warriors loosed arrows into the darkness. Sarah was screaming. Rebecca covered her with her body. Miles kept firing. He didn't bother aiming anymore, just fired into the mass of riders, tried to keep them back. His ammunition was running out. 10 rounds left. 8, 6. We need to surrender, Rebecca shouted. They will kill us anyway, Eagle Eye shouted back. Not if I give them what they want. Miles looked at her. What? Rebecca pulled something from her pocket. In the moonlight, Miles saw what it was. A piece of paper, folded, old. Thomas gave me a piece of the map, Rebecca said, before he died. Told me to keep it safe, hide it. I've had it this whole time, sewn into my dress. Why didn't you tell us? Because I didn't trust anyone, not even you, not until... She looked at Sarah, at Miles, at Eagle Eye. Not until now. Rebecca stood up, held the paper above her head. Porter, she screamed, I have part of the map, the real map. You want it, stop shooting, and I'll give it to you. The gunfire stopped. Silence fell over the desert. Then a voice, smooth, educated, cold. Mrs. Morgan, how lovely to hear your voice again. Judge Randall Porter rode forward. He was exactly what Miles expected. Tall, well-dressed, handsome in that polished way that came from money and power. He looked at Rebecca like she was a bug he'd found in his soup. I must say I'm impressed, Porter said. I didn't think you had it in you to break free, let alone recruit help. Who are your friends, the Apache Savage and the... He looked at Miles. Who are you exactly? Nobody, Miles said. Clearly not nobody. You killed 3 of my men at that cabin, killed 2 more tonight. That makes you very much somebody. Porter smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. But it doesn't matter. You're all going to die. The only question is, how painfully? Not if you want this map, Rebecca said. She held it up higher. Porter's eyes locked on the paper. Miles saw hunger there, raw, desperate. Give me the map, Porter said. I'll let you live. Liar. You're right, I am, but I'll let your daughter live. That's the best offer you're going to get. Rebecca's hand shook. Swear it. Swear on whatever you hold sacred that if I give you this map, Sarah lives. I swear on my honor as a federal judge. You have no honor. Porter laughed. True, but I do have 20 armed men. And you have, what, 3 or 4 rounds left? Some arrows, you're beaten. Mrs. Morgan, give me the map. Save your daughter's life. It's the only choice you have. Rebecca looked at Miles. Her eyes were desperate, asking him what to do. Miles thought about it, thought about Sarah, about the map, about the treaty hidden somewhere in the desert, about Porter winning. Then he thought about something else. He's lying, Miles said quietly. He'll take the map and kill all of us, including Sarah. She's the only witness who can prove he kidnapped her, branded you. He can't let her live. Then what do we do? Miles looked at Eagle Eye. The old warrior's eyes were steady, calm, accepting. We fight, Miles said. We make them pay for every inch. And maybe some of us survive. Maybe Sarah survives. It's a better chance than surrender. That's not a plan, Rebecca said. That's suicide. It's both. Porter's voice rang out again. Time's up, Mrs. Morgan. Give me the map or watch your daughter die first. Rebecca closed her eyes. Miles could see her calculating, weighing, trying to find an option that didn't end with Sarah dead. There wasn't one. All right, Rebecca called out. I'll give you the map, but you let my daughter go first. Right now, let her walk away, then I'll hand it over. Porter considered this. No, you give me the map first, then I let her go. How stupid do you think I am? Quite stupid, actually. You married a man who thought he could fight the system. That takes a special kind of stupid. Porter's voice hardened. You have 3 seconds to throw me that map. 1. Rebecca's hand tightened on the paper. 2. Miles raised his rifle. Eagle Eye did the same. 3. A gunshot rang out, but it didn't come from Porter's men. It came from behind them. Miles spun, saw riders coming from the north, maybe 30 of them, riding hard. And at the front, that's Captain Holloway, Rebecca whispered. The riders crashed into Porter's men like a wave. Gunfire erupted, men screamed, horses reared. Now! Eagle Eye shouted. While they fight, run! They ran. Miles grabbed Sarah and threw her onto a horse. Rebecca mounted behind her. Eagle Eye and his warriors mounted up. Behind them, the battle raged. Miles saw Porter wheeling his horse around, saw him shouting orders. Saw Holloway's men cutting through Porter's guards like they were nothing. They rode north into the darkness. Rode until the gunfire faded. Rode until Miles's legs ached and his lungs burned. Finally, Eagle Eye raised his hand. They stopped. Miles slid off his horse, collapsed onto the ground. His heart was hammering so hard he thought it might explode. Rebecca dismounted with Sarah. The little girl was still crying, but she was alive and safe. Eagle Eye looked back toward Tombstone. Holloway came. Why? Because I sent him a letter 3 days ago, Rebecca said, before Porter took me. Told him everything, told him about Thomas, about the map, about Porter, asked him to help if anything happened to me. You never mentioned this, Miles said. Didn't know if he'd come, didn't want to get my hopes up. Thomas said Holloway was a good man, an honest man. I gambled that he still was. Miles laughed. Couldn't help it. You gambled. On a letter you sent 3 days ago, and he showed up at the exact right moment. Divine providence, Rebecca said, or dumb luck. I'll take either. Sarah pulled away from her mother, looked at her with those serious gray eyes. Mama, who are these people? Rebecca knelt down, touched her daughter's face. These are the people who saved you, baby. This is Mr. Sullivan, and this is Eagle Eye. They're friends. The mean judge said you were dead, said you didn't want me anymore. Rebecca's face crumpled. I never stopped wanting you, not for 1 second. I would have torn the world apart to find you. I knew you'd come, Sarah said. I told Emma you'd come. She believed me. Sarah held up the doll, blue dress, blonde hair, just like Rebecca described. Emma kept me company, kept me safe. Daddy told me before he died that Emma was special, that I should never let her go. So I didn't. Rebecca took the doll. Her hands were shaking. Can Mama look inside Emma just for a minute? Sarah nodded. Rebecca's fingers found a seam along the doll's back. She pulled it open, reached inside, and pulled out a piece of paper, old, folded, stained, part of the map. Miles and Eagle Eye moved closer. Rebecca unfolded it. In the moonlight they could see lines, markings, coordinates. This is it, Rebecca whispered. This is what Thomas died for. Eagle Eye took the paper, studied it. With this piece and the piece you have, we are closer, But we still need the third piece, the piece Captain Holloway has. Then we find him, Miles said. We get all three pieces. We find the treaty and the gold, and we finish Porter for good. Sarah tugged on Rebecca's dress. Mama, are we going home now? Rebecca looked at her daughter, at Miles, at Eagle Eye, at the desert stretching out around them. Yes, baby, she said finally. We're going home. But first, Mama has to do something important, something your daddy would have wanted. Can you be brave a little longer? Sarah nodded. I'm always brave. Daddy taught me. Rebecca pulled her daughter close, kissed her hair. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. They rode through what remained of the night. By dawn, they'd put 20 miles between themselves and Tombstone, between themselves and Porter and whatever remained of his men. But Miles knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. They'd rescued Sarah. They had two pieces of the map. They'd made an enemy of one of the most powerful men in the territory. And now came the hard part. Now they had to finish it. They found Captain Holloway 3 days later in a canyon 20 miles south of Tombstone. He'd set up a temporary camp with his men, 30 former Union soldiers who'd answered his call when Rebecca's letter arrived. Holloway himself was in his 50s, gray-bearded, with eyes that had seen too much war and not enough peace. When Miles and the others rode into camp, Holloway was sitting by a fire cleaning his rifle. He looked up, and his face broke into something that might have been relief. Mrs. Morgan, he said, standing. Thank God. When we hit Porter's men and you weren't there, I thought... He stopped when he saw Sarah. His expression softened. Is this her? This is Sarah, Rebecca said. My daughter. Holloway knelt down so he was eye level with the girl. Your father was a good man, Sarah. One of the best I ever knew. He'd be proud of you. Sarah looked at him with those serious gray eyes. Did you know my daddy? I did. Thomas and I served together during the war. Saved each other's lives more times than I can count. When the war ended, we stayed friends, wrote letters, visited when we could. Holloway's voice went rough. When I got Rebecca's letter telling me what happened to him, what Porter did, I knew I had to come, had to make it right. Are you going to kill the bad judge? Sarah asked. Holloway glanced at Rebecca. That's a complicated question, little one. Daddy always said complicated questions have simple answers if you're brave enough to say them. Holloway smiled sadly. Your daddy was right about that too. Yes. If I get the chance, I'm going to make sure Judge Porter faces justice, one way or another. Sarah nodded like this made perfect sense. Rebecca pulled her daughter close. Thank you for coming, Rebecca said to Holloway, for bringing your men. If you hadn't shown up when you did, I just wish I'd gotten there sooner, before Porter took you, before any of this happened. Holloway stood. Thomas's letter arrived 2 weeks after his death. He'd mailed it the day before he went to see Porter, like he knew something might happen to him. He told me about the map, about the treaty, asked me to keep the third piece safe, to use it if anything happened to him. Eagle Eye stepped forward. You have the third piece. Holloway looked at him. His hand moved toward his gun, then stopped. You're Apache. I am. The men who helped Rebecca escape mentioned an Apache elder. That you... Eagle Eye, yes. Holloway studied him for a long moment. Thomas wrote about you too. Said you were the rightful owner of the lands Porter's been stealing. Said if anything happened to him, I should find you, give you the map, help you reclaim what's yours. Thomas Morgan was a wise man, Eagle Eye said. He was, and he died for that wisdom. Holloway reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper, old, stained, identical to the other two pieces. This is what Porter killed him for, what he branded and sold Mrs. Morgan for, what he's been hunting for these past 2 months. He held it out to Eagle Eye. The old warrior took it with both hands like it was something sacred. With this, Eagle Eye said quietly, we can find the treaty. We can prove the land is ours. We can stop Porter and the men like him from taking any more. That's the idea, Holloway said. But there's a problem. Porter knows you have 2 pieces now. He knows you're coming for the third, and he's not going to sit around waiting for you to use them. What do you mean? Miles asked. Holloway gestured to one of his men. The soldier brought over a newspaper, 3 days old. The headline made Miles' stomach drop. Federal judge claims Apache terrorists kidnapped child. Miles read the article. It was all lies. Porter claimed Eagle Eye and his warriors had attacked his estate, kidnapped Sarah Morgan, murdered several guards, that Rebecca was being held hostage, that Miles was a known criminal and Confederate sympathizer, that the territorial governor was offering a reward for their capture, dead or alive. "Son of a bitch," Miles said. "He's framing us," Rebecca said, "making it look like we're the criminals." "Not just criminals," Holloway said. "Terrorists, murderers, kidnappers. Porter's got friends in high places, judges, politicians, newspaper editors. He's using all of them to make sure that if you're caught, you'll hang without a trial." "Then we don't get caught," Miles said. "It's not that simple. Porter's put out a call for volunteers, offering $500 for each of you, 1,000 for Eagle Eye. Half the men in the territory are looking for you now." Eagle Eye's expression didn't change. "Then we move quickly. Get the treaty. Expose Porter before he can silence us." "How?" Rebecca asked. "Even if we find the treaty, who's going to believe us? Porter controls the courts, controls the newspapers. We bring him evidence of his crimes and he'll just have us arrested or shot." Holloway was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "There's one man who might listen. Territorial Governor Crawford. He appointed Porter to the bench, but he's not corrupt. At least, not completely. If we can get the treaty to him directly, if we can prove Porter's been lying, Crawford might act." "Might?" Miles said. "That's a hell of a gamble." "Everything's a gamble at this point, but Crawford's our best shot. Maybe our only shot." Eagle Eye unfolded all 3 pieces of the map, laid them out on a flat rock. His warriors gathered around. Miles and Rebecca looked over his shoulder. The pieces fit together like a puzzle. When aligned properly, they showed a location in the Dragoon Mountains, a specific peak marked with an X, coordinates, and a note written in faded ink. "What's it say?" Rebecca asked. Eagle Eye traced the words with his finger. "It says, 'Where the eagle watches the dragon beneath the stone that weeps, lies the proof of promises made and broken. Guard it well, for it is all that remains of honor.'" "Thomas always did have a way with words," Holloway said. "Where the eagle watches the dragon," Miles repeated. "That's got to be Eagle Peak, the highest point in the Dragoons." "And the stone that weeps?" Rebecca asked. "A spring," Eagle Eye said. "There is a spring near Eagle Peak. The water comes through a crack in the rock. Looks like the stone is crying. My people call it the Weeping Stone. It is a sacred place." "How long to get there?" Holloway asked. 2 days, maybe 3. The path is difficult, dangerous, and Porter will be coming after us the whole way," Miles added. "So we split up," Holloway said. "I'll take most of my men and head west. Make it look like we're running for California. Draw off Porter's hunters. You 4 take the map and head for Eagle Peak. Find the treaty. Get it to Governor Crawford in Santa Fe." "That's a suicide mission," Rebecca said. "Porter will tear you apart." "Maybe, but I've been looking for a good death since the war ended. This seems as good as any." Holloway smiled. "Besides, I made Thomas a promise. Told him if anything happened to him, I'd look after his family. Well, his family needs that treaty, so that's what I'm going to get you." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "Captain, no arguments, Mrs. Morgan. My mind's made up." Holloway turned to Miles. "You keep her safe. Keep that little girl safe. And when you find that treaty, you make sure the world knows what Porter did. Make sure Thomas didn't die for nothing." Miles nodded. "I will." "Good man." Holloway shook his hand. Then he shook Eagle Eye's. "I'm sorry for what was done to your people, during the war and after. If this treaty can set some of that right, then it's worth every drop of blood it costs." Eagle Eye held his gaze. You are not like the other white men. You understand honor. I understand debt, and this country owes your people a debt it can never repay. But maybe we can start. They left at dawn. Holloway and his men rode west, making as much noise as possible, leaving an obvious trail. Miles, Rebecca, Sarah, and Eagle Eye rode south toward the mountains, moving carefully, covering their tracks. Sarah rode with her mother, still clutching Emma the doll. She hadn't let go of it since they'd rescued her. Sometimes Miles saw her whispering to it, having quiet conversations only she could hear. "Is she all right?" Miles asked Rebecca quietly. "I don't know. She hasn't talked much about what happened, what Porter did. I don't want to push her. Maybe that's for the best. Let her process it in her own time. Or maybe she's bottling it up. Maybe it's going to explode later and I won't know how to help her." Rebecca's voice cracked. "I'm her mother. I'm supposed to protect her. And I let Porter take her. Let him. You didn't let him do anything. He took her. He branded you. He sold you. None of that was your fault." "Feels like my fault." "I know, but it's not." They rode in silence for a while. The desert gave way to foothills. The foothills gave way to mountains. The air grew cooler, thinner. That night they camped in a box canyon. No fire. Too risky. They ate dried meat and drank water from a stream. Sarah fell asleep quickly, exhausted, curled up against her mother. Eagle Eye sat apart from them, staring at the map by moonlight. Miles walked over and sat beside him. "You think it's real?" Miles asked. "The treaty. Thomas Morgan believed it was real. He died believing it. That is enough for me. And if we find it, if we get it to the governor, you think it'll actually change anything?" Eagle Eye was quiet for a long time. "I think white men have been making promises to my people for 100 years. And I think white men have been breaking those promises just as long. But Thomas Morgan did not break his promise. Captain Holloway did not break his promise. Perhaps there are enough men like them to make a difference. Perhaps not. But I must try. What other choice do I have? You could take your people and leave. Go somewhere Porter can't find you." "There is nowhere Porter cannot find us. Men like him have taken everything. The land, the water, the buffalo. Even the sky feels smaller than it used to." Eagle Eye looked at Miles. "I am old. I have lost my village, my family, my daughter. I have nothing left except this fight. If I die trying to save my people's land, that is a good death. Better than dying slowly on a reservation watching my people forget who they were." Miles thought about Captain Henderson, about Eagle Eye's burning village, about all the things he couldn't undo. "I'm sorry," he said, "for what I did, for what I didn't stop. I know it doesn't change anything, but—" "You are right. It does not change anything." Eagle Eye's voice was flat. "But you are here now, fighting beside me instead of against me. That is something, not forgiveness, but something. What's it going to take for forgiveness? I do not know if forgiveness is possible, but perhaps if we win this fight, if we save my people's land, if we stop Porter, perhaps that will be enough. Not to erase the past, but to make the future less ugly." Miles nodded. It was the best answer he was going to get. The next morning they continued climbing. The mountains grew steeper, the path grew narrower. Sarah was struggling. She wasn't used to riding this long, wasn't used to the altitude. "We need to rest," Rebecca said. "We cannot rest," Eagle Eye said. "Porter's men will be tracking us. If we stop, they catch us. She's 7 years old. She needs to rest." "I'm okay, Mama," Sarah said, but her voice was weak, her face was pale. Miles dismounted. "I'll carry her. We can make better time that way." He lifted Sarah onto his shoulders. She wrapped her arms around his neck. She was lighter than she should be. Porter hadn't been feeding her enough. "Thank you, Mr. Sullivan," Sarah said quietly. "Call me Miles. Mama says I should call grown-ups Mr. or Ma'am. Your mama's right, but I'm making an exception." Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Miles, are you going to marry my mama?" Miles nearly tripped. "What? No. I mean, where'd you get that idea? You look at her the way Daddy used to look at her. And she looks at you the same way. That means you're going to get married. It's not that simple, sweetheart. Why not? Because your mama and I just met, and she's still mourning your daddy, and we're in the middle of running for our lives. It's not exactly the right time for marriage. Daddy always said when you find something worth keeping, you hold on tight. He said that about Mama, and Mama's worth keeping, so you should hold on tight. Miles didn't know what to say to that. Ahead of him, he saw Rebecca's shoulders shaking. She was listening, and she was either laughing or crying, maybe both. They reached Eagle Peak by mid-afternoon of the second day. The mountain rose like a knife blade from the desert floor. At its base, water trickled from a crack in the rock face, the weeping stone. Eagle Eye dismounted, approached the spring, knelt and drank. Then he pressed his forehead against the wet rock. My ancestors drank from this spring, he said, for generations, before the white men came, before the wars. This place has always been ours, will always be ours, no matter what papers say otherwise. Then let's make sure those papers say the right thing, Miles said. They searched for an hour, looked behind rocks, under stones, inside crevices, found nothing. Where the eagle watches the dragon, Rebecca said. We're at Eagle Peak. We're at the weeping stone. What are we missing? Sarah tugged on her mother's dress. Mama, can I say something? Of course, baby. Emma wants to help. Rebecca knelt down. What do you mean? Sarah held up the doll. Daddy told me Emma was special, that she could see things other people couldn't see. Maybe Emma knows where to look. Sarah, honey, Emma's a doll. She can't. Let her try, Miles said. Can't hurt. Sarah walked around the spring holding Emma up, like she was showing her things. She moved slowly, carefully, stopped at a spot where the rock face jutted out, creating a small overhang. Here, Sarah said. Emma says here. Eagle Eye moved to the spot, looked up. Then his expression changed. The shadow, he said. Look at the shadow. Miles looked. The overhang cast a shadow on the rock face. And in the right light, at the right angle, the shadow looked like an eagle. Wings spread, watching. Where the eagle watches the dragon, Miles said. The shadow is the eagle. It's watching the mountains, the dragoons, dragon mountains. Beneath the stone that weeps, Eagle Eye added. He pressed against the rock beneath the shadow. It moved, slid aside. Behind it was a hollow space. Inside the hollow was a metal box, old, rusted, sealed with wax. Eagle Eye pulled it out. His hands were shaking. He looked at Rebecca, at Miles, at Sarah. This is it, he said. This is what Thomas died for. He broke the seal, opened the box. Inside were documents, yellowed with age, and beneath the documents gold coins, Union gold, hundreds of them. Eagle Eye ignored the gold, picked up the documents, unfolded them carefully. The first was a treaty, dated 1863, signed by Union generals and Apache chiefs. It granted the Apache permanent ownership of the lands from Eagle Peak to the Chiricahua Mountains, in exchange for Apache scouts and warriors helping the Union fight the Confederacy. The second document was a letter from a Union general to the Secretary of War, explaining that the treaty must be kept secret, that if the Confederacy learned the Union was promising land to the Apache, it could turn other tribes against them. The letter promised that after the war the treaty would be honored. The Apache would get their land. The third document was another letter from the Secretary of War, dated 1866, 1 year after the war ended. It ordered all copies of the Apache Treaty destroyed, ordered the land opened to settlers and miners, ordered the Apache moved to reservations. They knew, Eagle Eye said. His voice was hollow. They knew they were breaking the treaty, breaking their promise, and they did it anyway. That's the government for you, Miles said bitterly. But this proves it, Rebecca said. Proves Porter's land claims are illegal. Proves the mining companies have been stealing. Proves everything. Eagle Eye carefully folded the documents, put them back in the box, looked at the gold. "This gold should go to the Apache," he said. "It is blood money, payment for stolen land." "Take it," Miles said. "Take all of it. Use it to help your people. First, we must get these documents to the governor. Without that, the gold means nothing. Porter will claim we stole it. We'll use it as more proof we are criminals. Then we ride for Santa Fe," Rebecca said. "Now, before Porter figures out where we went." They packed the box carefully, divided the gold among their saddlebags, mounted up and started riding north. They made it maybe five miles before they heard the horses behind them. Miles turned, saw dust rising, riders, lots of them. "Go," he shouted. "Ride." They pushed their horses hard, but the riders were gaining. Miles counted at least 20 men, maybe more. "We cannot outrun them," Eagle Eye shouted. "We have to try." Sarah was crying, holding tight to her mother. Emma, the doll, bounced in her grip. The riders were closing. 100 yards, 75, 50. Then a gunshot. The lead rider went down. Miles looked back, saw more riders coming from the east. Holloway's men. The captain was alive, and he'd brought reinforcements. "Thank God," Rebecca breathed. But the relief was short-lived, because coming from the west were more riders, 50 at least, and at their head, riding a black horse and wearing a black suit, was Judge Randall Porter himself. They were surrounded. Miles pulled his horse to a stop. No point running anymore. Eagle Eye stopped beside him. Rebecca held Sarah tight. Porter rode forward. His smile was cold, triumphant. "Mrs. Morgan," he called out, "I must say you've led me on quite a chase, but all chases end eventually, and this one ends with you giving me that box." "Go to hell," Rebecca said. "I've been there already. Lovely this time of year." Porter gestured to his men. "You're outnumbered, outgunned, surrounded. Your friend Holloway is about to die. You're about to die. That child is about to die. Unless you give me what I want. Give me the treaty, give me the gold. Walk away. I'll even let you keep the girl. That's generous, don't you think?" "You're lying," Miles said. "You'll kill us all anyway." "Probably, but this way you have a chance. A small chance, but a chance nonetheless. Otherwise," Porter pulled out a revolver, pointed it at Sarah. "Otherwise, I shoot the child first, make you watch her die. Then I kill you slowly. Your choice." Rebecca's face went white. "You wouldn't." "Wouldn't I? I've killed before, Mrs. Morgan. I'll kill again. Children are just smaller targets. Easier, really." Sarah pressed her face into her mother's chest. Her small body was shaking. Miles felt something snap inside him, something that had been holding back, keeping control. It broke like a dam, and everything behind it came flooding out. All the rage, all the guilt, all the ghosts. "You want the treaty," Miles said. His voice was quiet, calm. "Come and get it." He spurred his horse forward, straight at Porter. The judge's eyes went wide. He fired, missed. Miles was on him before he could fire again. They crashed off their horses, hit the ground hard. Miles's fist connected with Porter's face. Bone crunched, blood sprayed. Porter tried to fight back, but Miles was beyond caring about getting hurt, was beyond caring about anything except making this man pay. Around them, chaos erupted. Holloway's men charged. Porter's men charged. Eagle Eye's warriors loosed arrows. Gunfire filled the air. Men screamed. Horses screamed. Miles kept hitting Porter over and over. The judge's face became a mask of blood. He wasn't smiling anymore, wasn't talking, just choking on his own blood. Someone grabbed Miles from behind, pulled him off. Miles spun. One of Porter's men, Miles' knife was in his hand before he knew he'd drawn it. The man went down. Another man, another knife thrust, another body. Miles was drowning in violence, drowning in rage. And he didn't care about anything except keeping Rebecca and Sarah safe, except making sure Porter never hurt anyone again. He heard Rebecca screaming his name, looked up, saw Porter staggering to his feet, blood pouring down his face, gun in his hand, pointed at Rebecca and Sarah. Miles ran, threw himself in front of them just as Porter fired. The bullet hit him in the shoulder, spun him around. He fell, hit the ground, looked up and saw Porter aiming again. Then Eagle Eye was there, his knife flashed. Porter's throat opened, blood fountained. The judge's eyes went wide, confused, like he couldn't believe this was happening to him. He fell, died in the Arizona dirt like everyone he'd killed. The gunfire stopped. Porter's men were running. Holloway's men were chasing them. Eagle Eye's warriors were collecting weapons from the dead. Rebecca was beside Miles, crying, pressing her hands against his shoulder, trying to stop the bleeding. "You stupid, stupid man," she said. "Why'd you do that? Couldn't let him hurt you," Miles said. His voice sounded far away. "Couldn't let him hurt Sarah. Promised I'd keep you safe. You're not dying. You hear me? You're not allowed to die. Might not have a choice about that." Sarah was there too, looking down at him with those serious gray eyes, holding Emma. "Don't die, Miles," she said. "Mama needs you. I need you." Miles tried to answer, but the world was going gray, cold. He was so tired of fighting, of running, of carrying all these ghosts. Maybe it was time to rest. But then Sarah did something unexpected. She put Emma the doll on his chest, right over his heart. "Emma will protect you," Sarah said. "She protected me. Now she'll protect you. You just have to believe." Miles looked at the doll, at Sarah's serious face, at Rebecca crying, and he decided dying could wait. He'd made promises to Rebecca, to Sarah, to himself. And Miles Sullivan might be a lot of things, coward killer, haunted wreck of a man, but he wasn't a promise breaker. "All right," he whispered. "All right, I'll stay." And he did. Miles woke up 3 days later in a bed that wasn't his own. The room smelled like soap and wood smoke and something else. Bread, maybe. Fresh bread. His shoulder felt like someone had driven a railroad spike through it, but he was alive. Sarah's doll was still on his chest. He picked it up carefully. Emma stared at him with painted blue eyes. Miles had seen men die holding their Bibles, their letters from home, photographs of their wives. He'd never seen a man saved by a child's doll before. But then again, he'd never seen a lot of things that turned out to be true anyway. The door opened. Rebecca came in carrying a bowl of something that steamed. When she saw his eyes were open, she nearly dropped it. "You're awake." "Seems like it." "You've been out for 3 days. The doctor said you lost a lot of blood. Said we were lucky the bullet went clean through. Said if it had been 2 inches to the left." Her voice broke. She set the bowl down on a table beside the bed and pressed her hands to her face. Miles tried to sit up. Pain exploded through his shoulder. He gasped. "Don't move," Rebecca said. She was beside him in an instant, helping him settle back. "You need to rest. Let yourself heal." "Where are we?" "Holloway's house, Santa Fe. He brought us here after everything. The doctor's been treating you. Eagle Eye's men have been standing guard, making sure none of Porter's allies try to finish what he started. Porter's dead. Very dead. Eagle Eye made sure of that." Miles nodded, felt something loosen in his chest, something that had been wound tight for days, weeks, maybe years. "And the treaty, the documents." Rebecca's face changed. Something lit up in her eyes. "We got them to Governor Crawford 2 days ago. Holloway and Eagle Eye both testified, told him everything, showed him the proof. Crawford was furious, Miles. Absolutely furious. He'd trusted Porter, appointed him, and Porter had been lying to him for years, stealing, murdering, using the governor's authority to cover his crimes. What did Crawford do? Issued an emergency order, suspended all mining operations on Apache lands pending investigation, ordered federal marshals to arrest every man who worked for Porter, seized Porter's estate, his bank accounts, everything. And he personally wrote to Washington, told them about the treaty, about the promises that were made and broken, demanded the Interior Department honor the original agreement. Miles closed his eyes, felt tears leak out. He was too tired to stop them. "Thomas didn't die for nothing," he said. "No, he didn't. Rebecca's voice was soft. Eagle Eye said he said this doesn't fix everything, doesn't bring back his daughter or his village, doesn't undo what was done, but it's a start, a real start. His people will get their land back, get a chance to rebuild, to remember who they are. Where is Eagle Eye? Outside. He's been waiting to talk to you, said he has something important to say. Should I get him? In a minute. First, tell me about Sarah. Is she all right? Rebecca smiled, small but real. She's resilient, stronger than I gave her credit for. She's been talking more about what happened, about Porter, about the things he said to her. The doctor says talking is good, says it means she's processing, healing. What did Porter tell her? Rebecca's smile faded. He told her I was dead, that I'd abandoned her, that I never loved her. He was trying to break her, make her forget me, forget Thomas, turn her into whatever he wanted her to be. But she didn't believe him. No, she said she knew I was coming, knew I'd never abandon her. She told Porter that every day, even when he threatened her, even when he locked her in that room. She never stopped believing. Miles thought about that 7-year-old girl holding her doll, whispering to it, keeping faith when every adult around her had failed. She's tougher than both of us, Miles said. She's her father's daughter. She's your daughter too. That toughness came from somewhere. Rebecca looked at him, really looked. Her gray eyes were wet but steady. Thank you, she said, for what you did, for stepping in front of that bullet, for keeping your promise. Didn't have a choice, made a promise, had to keep it. You always have a choice, Miles. You chose to help a stranger, chose to fight a judge, chose to risk your life for a little girl you barely knew. Those were choices, good choices. Miles didn't know what to say to that, didn't know how to explain that helping them had been the first thing that felt right in 11 years, that keeping them safe had given him something he'd lost during the war, purpose, maybe, or just proof that he was still capable of doing good instead of evil. Should probably get Eagle Eye, he said finally, before I fall back asleep. Rebecca nodded, squeezed his hand, left the room. Eagle Eye came in a minute later. He moved quietly for a man his age, sat down in the chair beside the bed, looked at Miles with those sharp, clear eyes. You are awake, Eagle Eye said. Barely. That is enough. I wanted to thank you for what you did, for helping my people, for fighting beside me even though I hated you. You had every right to hate me. Yes, I did. I still do in some ways. When I close my eyes, I still see my village burning, still see my daughter's face as the soldiers took her, still see you standing there watching, doing nothing. Miles' throat tightened. I'm sorry. I know it's not enough, but let me finish. Eagle Eye's voice was firm but not unkind. I still see those things. I will always see them. But now I also see you carrying Sarah on your shoulders. See you taking a bullet meant for her. See you fighting to protect the people I love, even though you owed us nothing. And I think perhaps you are not the same man who stood in my village 11 years ago. Perhaps you have changed, or perhaps you were always more than what you did that day. Perhaps we are all more than our worst moments. Miles couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The Apache have a saying, Eagle Eye continued. A man who carries water to the desert earns no praise, but a man who carries water to the desert after setting it on fire, that man earns respect. Not forgiveness, not love, but respect, because it takes courage to face what you have done, to try to make it right. I can't make it right, can't bring back your daughter, can't rebuild your village. No, you cannot, but you helped save my people's land, helped destroy the man who was stealing from us, helped give us a future. That is not nothing. That is something worth remembering. Eagle Eye stood, placed something on the table beside the bed, a leather cord with a small stone tied to it. The stone had a hole through the center. This is a seeing stone, Eagle Eye said. My grandfather gave it to me when I was a boy. He said if you look through it at the world, you see things as they truly are, not as you wish them to be, not as you fear them to be, but as they are. I can't take this. You can and you will, because you need to see yourself as you truly are, not as the coward who let my village burn, and not as the hero who saved Sarah, but as the man who is both, who contains multitudes, who is capable of terrible things and beautiful things, who is trying every day to be better than he was the day before. That is who you are, Miles Sullivan, and that is enough. Eagle Eye walked to the door, paused. My people are leaving tomorrow, going back to our lands, to rebuild, to remember. If you ever find yourself in the Dragoon Mountains, come find us. You will always have a place at our fire. Thank you, Miles managed. Do not thank me. Just keep your promise. Keep protecting that woman and her child. They need you. And I think you need them too. He left. Miles picked up the seeing stone, held it up to his eye, looked through the hole at the room. It looked the same, just a room, just walls and a window and sunlight, but somehow it felt different, clearer, true. Miles spent another week recovering. Each day he got a little stronger. Each day the pain in his shoulder faded a little more. Sarah visited him every afternoon, bringing Emma and telling him stories about the books she was reading. Rebecca came every evening, bringing food and conversation, and sometimes just silence. Holloway stopped by on the 8th day. He looked tired, but satisfied. Governor Crawford's made it official, Holloway said. The Apache lands are being returned. The mining companies are being investigated. 17 men have been arrested for conspiracy, fraud, and murder. Porter's entire network is collapsing. What about us? Miles asked. Porter accused us of kidnapping, terrorism, murder. All charges dropped. Crawford issued a public statement, called you heroes, said you exposed corruption at the highest levels, said without you, Porter would still be stealing and killing. Holloway smiled. You're famous now. Newspapers across the territory are running stories about the school teacher who fought a judge and won. Rebecca's not going to like that. She doesn't. She's already turned down 3 interview requests, told one reporter she'd shoot him if he didn't leave her alone. Miles laughed. It hurt his shoulder, but he didn't care. What about the gold? He asked. Eagle Eye took half, used it to buy supplies for his people, food, medicine, tools. The other half went to Crawford. He's using it to establish a fund. For the Apache, for rebuilding, for education. Thomas would have liked that. Yeah, he would have. Holloway was quiet for a moment. Then he said, What are you going to do now, after you heal? Don't know. Haven't thought that far ahead. You should think about it. Rebecca and Sarah need stability, safety. They can't keep running forever. I know. They also need someone who understands what they've been through, someone who won't judge them, someone who will protect them. Miles looked at him. You saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying you 3 have been through hell together, came out the other side. That creates bonds, strong bonds. Be ashamed to waste them. She just lost her husband 2 months ago, and she's grieving. Will be grieving for a long time, but grief doesn't mean she has to be alone, doesn't mean Sarah has to grow up without a father figure. I'm not her father. No. But you could be something good, something worth holding on to. Holloway stood. Just think about it, that's all I'm asking. He left. Miles lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about Rebecca's gray eyes, about Sarah's serious face, about the way they'd both looked at him when he'd taken that bullet. Like he mattered, like he was worth saving. Miles had spent 11 years thinking he was worthless, thinking he was nothing but a coward who'd let innocent people die. But maybe Eagle Eye was right. Maybe he was more than his worst moment. Maybe he could be the man who carried water to the desert after setting it on fire. Maybe he could be the man Rebecca and Sarah needed. The question was whether he was brave enough to try. 2 weeks after Porter died, Miles was well enough to walk. Rebecca took him outside. They sat on Holloway's porch and watched the sun set over Santa Fe. Sarah was inside playing with other children. Her laughter drifted through the open window. She sounds happy, Miles said. She is, for now. She still has nightmares sometimes. still wakes up crying for Thomas, but she's healing. We both are. What are you going to do after this? Rebecca was quiet for a long time. Governor Crawford offered me a job, teaching at the new school he's establishing on Apache lands. Said the children there need someone who understands loss, someone who can teach them their own history as well as reading and writing. You going to take it? I want to, but it's dangerous. Even with Porter dead, there are still men who hate the Apache, who hate anyone who helps them. I'd be putting Sarah at risk, putting myself at risk. You'd also be doing what Thomas wanted, helping people, making a difference. I know, that's why it's so hard to decide. Rebecca looked at him. What about you? What are you going to do? Miles took a deep breath. Been thinking about that. Been thinking about a lot of things, actually. And I realized I'm tired of being alone. Tired of hiding. Tired of running from ghosts. I want something real, something worth fighting for. What does that mean? It means if you take that job, I'm coming with you. Me and my rifle and whatever else you need. Can't promise I'll be good at it. Can't promise I won't wake up at 3 in the morning with nightmares. But I can promise I'll keep you safe, both of you, for as long as you'll have me. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. Miles, I'm not asking to replace Thomas. Can't do that. Don't want to, but I'm asking for a chance to be part of your life, part of Sarah's life, a chance to be something other than the man who burned villages, a chance to be the man who protects them instead. You already are that man. You've been that man since the day you found me in that wagon. Then let me keep being that man. Let me stand beside you, help you rebuild, help Sarah grow up, help the Apache kids learn to read. Let me be useful. Let me matter. Rebecca reached out, took his hand, squeezed. You already matter, Miles Sullivan. You matter to me. You matter to Sarah. You matter to Eagle Eye and his people. And if you want to come with us, if you want to help us build something new out of all this pain, then yes. Yes, I'd like that very much. Miles felt something break open in his chest, something that had been locked tight since the war. Hope, maybe, or just the possibility of hope. Thank you, he said. Don't thank me yet. Wait until you've spent a few months teaching Apache children their ABCs. You might regret this. I won't. You don't know that. Yes, I do. They sat in silence as the sun dropped below the horizon. The sky turned orange, then purple, then deep blue. Stars began to appear, the same stars that had watched Miles burn Eagle Eye's village, the same stars that had watched him save Sarah, the same stars that would watch him try to build something good out of all the broken pieces. Sarah came out onto the porch. She looked at her mother holding Miles's hand, smiled. Does this mean Miles is staying with us? If he wants to, Rebecca said. I want to, Miles said. Sarah threw her arms around his neck, careful of his injured shoulder. Emma the doll pressed between them. Good, Sarah said, because Emma likes you, and Emma's never wrong about people. Miles laughed, hugged her back. Over her head he met Rebecca's eyes, saw tears streaming down her face, saw joy and pain and hope all mixed together. They stayed like that until full dark. 3 people who'd been broken by violence and loss. 3 people who'd found each other in the worst possible circumstances. 3 people who'd decided to stop running and start building. It wouldn't be easy. Miles knew that. The nightmares wouldn't stop. The memories wouldn't fade. Porter was dead, but the world was still full of men like him, still full of hatred and greed and cruelty. But it was also full of people like Rebecca, like Sarah, like Eagle Eye, people who kept fighting even when fighting seemed impossible. People who kept hoping even when hope seemed foolish. People who carried water to the desert and planted seeds in the dust and believed against all evidence that something beautiful could grow. Miles had spent 11 years trying to forget what he'd done during the war, trying to run from his guilt, but he understood now that forgetting was impossible. Running was pointless. The only way forward was to remember everything and choose to be better anyway. To carry the weight of his past and use it to build a better future. Not for himself. He was beyond redemption. But for Sarah, for Rebecca, for the Apache children who would learn to read in the school Rebecca would teach. For everyone who came after. That was enough. That was more than enough. 6 months later, Miles stood in front of a one-room schoolhouse at the edge of Apache lands. Rebecca taught inside. 20 children sat at handmade desks learning their letters. Sarah sat in the front row, raising her hand to answer every question. Eagle Eye sat on the porch beside Miles. They didn't talk much, didn't need to, just sat together watching the desert and the mountains and the sky. The children are learning well, Eagle Eye said finally. Rebecca's a good teacher. She is. And you are a good protector. My people feel safe knowing you are here. I'm just one man with a rifle. You are a man who keeps his promises. That is worth more than 100 rifles. Miles thought about that, about promises kept and promises broken, about the village that had burned and the children who were learning, about the man he'd been and the man he was becoming. Your grandfather was right, Miles said, about the seeing stone, about seeing things as they truly are. And what do you see when you look at yourself now? Miles watched Sarah through the window, watched her laughing at something Rebecca said, watched her clutching Emma the doll. I see a man who made terrible mistakes, who let innocent people die, who ran from his guilt for 11 years. But I also see a man who's trying to make amends, who's protecting people instead of failing them, who's building instead of destroying. I see both, and I'm learning to live with both. Eagle Eye nodded. That is wisdom. That is growth. Your captain, the one who died at Shiloh, he would be proud. Maybe, or maybe he'd say I should have learned this lesson years ago. Shouldn't have taken me so long to figure out how to be decent. The journey matters less than the destination. You are here now. You are doing the work now. That is what counts. Inside the schoolhouse, Rebecca dismissed the children for the day. They poured out chattering in Apache and English. Sarah ran to Miles. Miles' mama says we can ride to the spring after supper. Can we please? If your mama says so, then yes. She did. She said you'd say yes. Come on. Sarah grabbed his hand, pulled him toward the horses. Emma bounced in her other hand. Miles looked back at Eagle Eye. The old warrior raised his hand in farewell. Miles raised his back. A moment of understanding between two men who'd been enemies and were now something else. Not friends exactly, but allies, brothers in the fight to make something good out of something terrible. That evening, Miles rode with Rebecca and Sarah to the Weeping Stone. They dismounted and drank from the spring. Sarah played in the water. Rebecca sat beside Miles on a rock. You happy? Rebecca asked. Miles thought about it. Happiness felt like too simple a word for what he felt. Too clean. There was still pain, still guilt, still nights when he woke up reaching for ghosts. But there was also this. Sarah's laughter, Rebecca's hand in his, the cool water of the spring and the warm air of evening, the knowledge that tomorrow he'd wake up and do good work. Protect good people, be part of something larger than himself. Yeah, he said finally. I think I am, or I'm getting there at least. That's good, that's enough. Sarah ran over, dripping wet. Look what I found. She held out a smooth stone with a hole through it, just like Eagle Eye's seeing stone. That's beautiful, sweetheart, Rebecca said. Emma says it's magic. Says if you look through it, you can see the truth. Miles took the stone, held it up to his eye, looked through at the desert. He saw mountains and sky and the last light of day. He saw Sarah and Rebecca and the schoolhouse in the distance. He saw Eagle Eye's people rebuilding their lives. He saw the future taking shape from the ruins of the past. And he saw himself, not as the coward who'd let a village burn, not as the hero who'd saved a little girl, but as a man, flawed, broken, trying, surviving, building something worth keeping. That was the truth Eagle Eye had been talking about. The truth the seeing stone revealed. Not that Miles was good or bad, but that he was human, capable of both. And that being human was enough. Being human and trying was all anyone could do. Miles handed the stone back to Sarah. Your friend Emma's right. It is magic. I know, Emma's always right. Sarah looked up at him with those serious gray eyes. Are you going to stay with us forever? Miles looked at Rebecca. She was watching him, waiting. Yeah, Miles said. I think I am, if that's all right with you. It's all right with me, and with Emma, and with Mama. Sarah hugged him tight. I'm glad you're here, Miles. I'm glad you didn't die. I'm glad you're ours now. Ours. Such a simple word, such a powerful word. Miles Sullivan had spent 11 years belonging to no one, answering to no one, mattering to no one. Now he belonged. Now he mattered. Now he was home. Not in a place, not in a building, but in the space between this woman and this child. In the work they were doing together. In the future they were building from the ashes of everything they'd lost. The desert wind blew warm across the mountains. The weeping stone cried its eternal tears. The sun set on another day, and Miles Sullivan, former soldier, former coward, former ghost, finally stopped running and started living. Because in the end, that's what redemption looked like. Not forgiveness from others, not forgetting the past, but choosing to be better, choosing to protect instead of destroy, choosing to build instead of burn, choosing to love the people who needed you and letting them love you back. Miles had thought his soul was lost somewhere in the smoke of Eagle Eye's village, but he'd been wrong. It was right here, in Sarah's laughter, in Rebecca's hand, in the good work they were doing, in the simple act of showing up every day and trying to be the man they believed he could be. That was enough. That was everything. That was redemption.